Hey everyone, welcome back. And again, we are going to be relying very heavily on our transfers. So I'm going to show you a trick for beginners to create two transfers. And this is kind of a silk screening trick. In silk screening, you need your transfers to be exactly in the same place when you're applying different colors. So what they do is have something where they put their screen in, and then it can come up and it can come down, and it never moves, so that when you make an additional layer of color, everything will line up where it's supposed to go. So I added a little bit extra paper onto the top, pulled it up, and then I added my white transfer paper. I started with white. It's not necessary for you, I don't know if there really is a right way of should you start with your darker transfer paper or your lighter one. For me, it was just personal preference. I thought I had a lot of lights here that I wanted to get in, and then I thought if I sprayed it and then added my darks over, then the darks would not be covered. It would be laying on top of the light ones. But a transfer paper basically just allows you to draw on top of a photo reference, and whatever you draw on top of it will lay a transfer underneath. And since this class probably has a lot of people that are not quite experienced with painting, I'm going to ask you guys to rely heavily on your transfers. This way, if some of your transfers are showing through, it could look more stylistic than a mistake. And what I mean by that is you can use different types of lines that will make your painting look more stylized. Since this is it's supposed to mimic almost like a mid-century horror film movie poster. So if you did your research, you could see that there were a lot of these lines called hatch mark lines, and those lines are just lines that are right next to each other, and they give the illusion of a shadow, even though you're not using something that could blend, like ink markers, whatever you can't blend. They use hatch mark lines. You would even see it on a dollar bill. So if you are a little bit organized with your lines, then you can almost use it as part of your painting, where some of those lines will shine through, and it will match the style that we're creating, which is, very similar to a 1950s horror film movie poster. One tip about the white transfer is that you should always do a scratch test. And what that means is when you lay down your transfer paper, take your nail and just rub on top of it to make sure that it is going through the right way, because I accidentally one time did a complete transfer upside down, and that was not fun. Okay, so what I'm doing is actually finding my highlights, really whites, and I'm going in with my red pen, and this pen is honestly the best because it has a really fine tip, and I'll just make sure again that this is on my materials list. Anything that is super white, like the brightest white highlights that I'm seeing in my black and white printout, I'm just filling it in. And again, make sure your lines are somewhat organized, so if this ends up shining through your painting a little bit, it will be on purpose, not because you made a mistake. You're probably wondering, how detailed should you go? It is completely up to you. If you don't want to go too detailed, you can just kind of find the markings where you need to have information later on, like where the bottom of the jawline will be, where the shoulders would be. It really is up to you. If you don't want it to hinder your style, then you probably don't need a lot. But in this instance, I'm trying to show that you can go as advanced as you want. The more information can sometimes be, the better. So we're going to be creating a painting in a layered process in transparent layers. So transparency means that you can see through it. Opaque, or if something is opaque, it means that you cannot see through it. And there's different levels of transparency. So if you're adding a little bit of paint to your transparent medium, which is our glazed gloss liquid that you purchased for this. Okay, real fast. Spray down before you go to your next transfer, always spray your transfer, otherwise you can smudge it. I'm gonna hold the thought real quickly about the transparency. Here's where I think this probably was a big mistake. There's so much red line on here at the moment that I'm not quite sure. I had a really hard time doing the second transparency. The second transfer layer. And the reason why is I didn't switch pen colors. If I would have switched to like the same type of pen, but if I switched to blue, then I would know what was the highlight and what was the shadow. Now I'm just kind of guessing. Fortunately for me, it ended up working out because I really like took my time thinking about everything, and then I had to go over it a bunch of times actually. But having like a process that makes your job easier, like just switching your pen color, would be really helpful. And okay, before I go back to transparency again, you can see I'm starting to create hatch mark lines. Those are where the shadows are going to be. And do you have to use hatch mark lines for your piece necessarily? Absolutely not. But as I was talking about before, having some kind of system that works well will make you less frustrated. And why I like to use hatch mark lines is because when we're adding all of these lines and curves and everything, sometimes it could get really confusing on what is like a curve of like part of the face and what is a shadow that we were trying to create. So having a little bit of stylistic differences in your transfer will help you later, even though you're looking at a reference photo. But believe me, sometimes it can get confusing if you have a lot of information that you need to look at. And this whole process is meant for us to get to the next step without feeling frustrated. And every step is meant to get us to the end result. And so you have a finished painting. Okay, back to our transparencies. If you add a little bit of paint, which is opaque, not all paint is opaque though, but it'll tell you on your paint tube how transparent it is. You can even see it. Some paints will even paint the actual pigment onto the paint tube so you can see how transparent it is. So some are more transparent than others, and some will actually say the color opaque or the color transparent. So make sure you take a look at that to see if it is what you want. Anyhow, so let's just pretend that paints are opaque. If we're creating transparent layers, it means that we're going to add just a little bit of paint to our gloss glazing liquid. And how we're going to move throughout the process is just trying to focus on light first. So how would light affect an object without color being involved? In my personal opinion, when you're first starting out, don't even think about color until the end, because we can lay color on as a transparent glaze. So in the beginning, what we want to do is create an entire layer only focusing on highlights, midtones, and shadows, because that is going to be hard enough as a beginner. And by having a transfer where you're kind of giving yourself a roadmap at where the highlights are going to be, where the midtones are going to be, and the shadows, then you are going to start training your eye. And I mean, just like anything that you have to practice, like I eat food, I love food, but I am not a good cook. And even though I know what flavors are in there, I don't know how many, like how much they put in, or like what measurements they used, or like any of that. So it's similar to painting. You may look at a lot of paintings, or you may say, oh, that's super easy. But if you've never like actually done it, you don't know what materials are used to get that result. You're not quite sure what the process may be. And also you have an untrained eye. Artists have to look at details all the time. They have to think about lighting. They have to think about things that when you're just living your daily life, you're not required to think about too often. Oh, we're at the end. I will get back to that. And so spray it. This is what it looks like right now. So you can see highlights and shadows and everything underneath the back layer. is coming through. I think it looks nice even like that. Okay, I will see you in the next video.